Hello friends, let's continue our journey of understanding the fundamentals of agentic AI. We started with understanding retrieval augmented generation, and then we understood what is vector embedding. So even before vector embedding is done, we need to do the chunking of the data. So for a solution, corpus, which is a collection of documents, is provided. That documents needs to be divided into small chunks before creating the vector embedding and storing into the vector database. So what should be the strategy followed to divide those documents into small chunks? Okay. Yeah. So there has to be a balance between the context and the relevance. If the chunking is too big, then the relevance is lost, and the content gets diluted, and it's not specific to the question asked. So it equally depends on whether we are doing it for a question answer kind of solution or for a summarization, right? So in case of question answers kind of solution, small chunks are good, and in case of summarization kind of solutions, the larger chunks can be considered. So what is required is to do the reverse engineering based on what is the end goal, and accordingly go step by step in a reverse order and see what will be the right chunking size. Okay. So there are different ways of doing chunking: structural chunking and semantic chunking. So a small size or the large size is based on structural chunking, and semantic is based on more of a line or a paragraph, which without losing the meaning and the context, right? So what happens in case of structural chunking is like the chunks, a line may be partially in one chunk and part of that sentence might be in another chunk, and similarly for paragraph. Okay. So if your chunk size is too small, we might lose some context information related to the questions asked by the user. And if we chunk is too large, we might dilute and add additional information. So there is a thin line which will only based on the domain knowledge and the project kind of solution we are building, it can be decided. Right? So the good way of doing is to divide the chunking and stories, like you always preserve the metadata about data. So in a table we can store which document, which chunks are related to it, and what is the vector embedding indexes stored in the vector database. So whenever you get the new version of that document and need to replace in the vector database, we can create the new chunks and then replace those old chunks with the help of metadata information, and store the new chunks in the vector database after creating the vector embedding. Right. So let's go into the details. So what does chunking do? It creates a bridge between unstructured text and vector space, right? So any large document cannot be stored as it is in a vector embedding, because different vector embedding models has different token limits. So like Azure ADA from OpenAI, which is used and provides a token limit of 8,000 plus tokens, and creates a dimensions of 1,536 dimensions. So chunk size cannot be more than that, right? Similarly for Amazon Titan, it allows the variation of dimensions, and the chunk size, the token limit is around 8,000 plus only. Right, so different types of chunking: fixed chunking, sentence chunking, paragraph chunking, and semantic chunking. So fixed chunking is you decide the fixed length size, 4,000 words or tokens, or the 8,000 tokens, In such case, the part of the paragraph or a line may be part of one chunk, or remaining part of the next chunk, right? Okay. So the cost of doing the chunking is low. In case of sentence chunking, it is a medium cost based on the complete sentence. You can do it based on the period in the sentence, or the semicolon and so on, and sentence chunking can be done. So just recall the previous video which I had done on bias and evaluation, or even creating expected questions, expected answers, sub questions. So based on that, the rough idea can be take a reference point can be taken for a solution, that how much tokens or the size is good enough to answer the questions, and accordingly the chunk size can be decided, or based on that sentence chunking or paragraph chunking can be done, right? So in case of paragraph chunking, if the paragraph is too small, so you end up creating a vector just for a small chunk, and if the chunk is too large, we have to make sure it does not cross the limits of the token size provided by the model, which creates the vector embedding. In case of semantic chunking, the cost is high, because first we need to understand the content, and then based on the content we need to divide the text so that the semantic meaning is not lost. Okay, so fixed size chunking is like it gives a faster speed, but context may not be accurate and may be lost. So one of the way in such chunking can be helpful is, like in one of my previous project, we used to have a chunk size of 4000 and an overlap of 200. So what we used to do, whenever we retrieved the chunk based on the query embedding, we used to also retrieve the neighboring chunks of that chunk, and then give it to the synthesizer to draft the response for the user. In case of structural chunking, whether it's sentence chunking or paragraph chunking, so like sentence chunking captures granular information, the smaller details, while in paragraph chunking you might have get additional information which dilutes the accuracy. So it captures the broader local context. Right. So semantic chunking. In case of semantic chunking, in a document there could be different topics. So accordingly, once you give it to the agent could do the chunking based on finding the patterns and the topics, and segregate it. So we have to balance precision and context, right? So context of a solution is context to the solution is given in different ways. So knowledge base is one important context provided for the based on which the information is retrieved and given to the LLM along with the question asked by the user to formulate the right answer, right? If the chunk is too small, it might lose the meaningful information, and if it is too big, it may have some additional information and loses the relevance. It dilutes the relevance of it. So best way is like run through all the provided questions and expected answers and see how the system is behaving along with the actual scores. Do the evaluation, and based on the evaluation score, one will be able to find whether it is the answers are accurate or not, and then the chunking can be fine-tuned. Okay, so when you do a chunk and you pass it to the embedding model, what is the criteria which we should take care of is like chunk size does not exceed the limits of the model. So like in case of both Amazon Titan and OpenAI ADA, it takes about 8092 tokens. In case of vector dimensions, whether you give the smaller input or the larger input, the vector dimensions still remains the same. Whether you give the input as a cat is playable, or the entire essay on cat, which is less than 8000 tokens, all the three inputs will lead to creation of the vector embedding with 1536 dimensions in case of OpenAI ADA. Also, this sizing of the chunk decides and affects the latency of the solution, right? So where does the chunk fits into the ecosystem of retrieval augmented generation and vector database? So we use the chunking methods with the help of models, and after chunking the input is given to the vector embedding model. The vector embedding is created and it is stored and indexed into the vector database, right? And whenever the user asks any question, that vector embedding of the question is also given to the vector database, which will retrieve the closest embeddings from the database and return it. And then with the help of models which converted text into the numerical vector embeddings, very same models will convert it back to the sentence. So your question, whatever asked, the question vector is created, and along with that applying the nearest neighbor search algorithm, which may use cosine similarity, along with that it may use keyword search, will lead to the retrieval of chunks from the database. So like I mentioned at the start, we should store the metadata. The kind of metadata which we should store for a chunk is the document ID for which the chunk is related to, that is the source, the timestamp when it was created, and the content of it. Some models will even allow and have the API option to get the keywords for those chunks, and those keywords can be saved and utilized for keyword based search wherever required. And also the summary of that context can be saved. So this will also help us to evaluate if the answering system is responding correctly in retrieving the chunks, and do the testing and evaluation, right? So how the flow works, so like okay, so whenever any source data change happens, the chunking is done again, and in the vector database with the help of metadata, the chunks are replaced, the old chunks with the new chunks, and for verification those chunks are referred in the metadata table having a timestamp and other information. Okay, so why do we need overlap? So like suppose you decide chunks to be divided based on semantic or structural. So suppose you decide for 4000 tokens and then overlap of 200 tokens or words. So what happens is when we try to put the two neighboring chunks together to formulate the answer, based on the overlap, we can identify, and system will be able to understand the entire paragraph, and the continuity remains, and even the essence is not lost. Okay, so purpose driven optimization, right? So if we are using a question answer kind of solution is built, we should go for smaller size chunks to have the precision in the answering. And if we are doing some summarization kind of solution, one can go with use of larger size chunks, and it provides the broader context, right? So reverse engineer a chunking strategy from your end user's goal. So what is the end user goal? Whether it's a summarization, question answer, then how big are the responses for the questions, and accordingly utilize it in decision making on while deciding the size of the chunks, right? So the checklist for chunking is in case of semantic, it is better to use, and it gives quality. Also respect the calibrate size. That embedding models generally does not take more than 8,000 tokens. So the sentence or the paragraph size should not be more than 8,000 tokens. For continuity, whenever we divide the chunks, have an overlap, and then enrich the information by getting the metadata and storing that metadata along with the chunk. And whenever there is a change in the way documents, the updated documents should be chunked again, and with the help of metadata stored, those chunks should be replaced. Yeah. So this is what is about chunking. Let's understand now. Evaluate how much we have understood. You can pause and then try to answer the quiz questions. First question: what is the primary objective of chunking within the workflow of an AI retrieval system? So here are the 4 options, and here is the hint. Second question: which type of chunking is specifically designed to split text based or shifts in topic of meaning? Here are the options, and here is the hint. Next question: what is significant drawback of utilizing chunks that are considered too small? Here are the options, and here is the hint. Next question: according to source material, what happens when the size of an embedding is increased? Here are the options, and here is the hint. Next question: if you are using the OpenAI ADA model, approximately how many tokens can it handle as its maximum capacity? Here are the options, and here is the hint. Next question: how does a vector database interact with chunks during a similarity search? Here are the options, and here is the hint. Next question: which metadata component is most useful for ensuring that chunks are updated when the original source